Hi there, this is Karen Miller again. Really excited to get to talk to you a little bit today about interviewing and communication skills and tactics that come along with it. So just a reminder that I am the director of BillingsWorks, which is your local workforce development program hosted by Big Sky Economic Development, which really means it's my job to make sure that our local businesses and organizations and industry can have access to and tap into the talent that they need. And that talent is you. So I'm really excited to be back with you all talking about some important topics. And your instructor actually sent me some of your questions. So I'm going to actually answer those when it comes to interviewing, because as you all are highly aware, our world is looking a little different these days with COVID-19 and a lot more things being done virtually with technology. Everything is Zoom meetings these days. And so, what does that look like for interviews too? Because they will probably look a little different as well. So your first question has to do with dress attire. And that does not surprise me. I feel like that is a really pertinent question and a lot that people are curious about, particularly when it comes to interviewing for maybe a job that's more in the trades or not so, where you're not going to show up in your traditional professional attire with a blazer, a tie, a suit, whatever that may look like. So as far as interviewing goes though, I would say it does not matter if you are interviewing for a job in the trades or interviewing to be a babysitter or a nanny or be the executive of a bank. I would dress as professional and dress up for the job. You're never going to get dinged for looking too professional or too nice or too put together. You, however, might be dinged by going the other route. So let's say you're going to interview for a job where you will be working, more in like a uniform that's going to keep you safe and make you able to work with machines or work with technology or be, really using your hands. Again, I would still wear a nice button-up shirt. For gentlemen, I would still put on a tie. For ladies, a nice blazer really makes anything look much more dressed up. So I would still dress up for those jobs too, because first impressions are really important. And actually, that leads into your next question, which is really about first impressions and what are some tips for that. So we cannot help but make assumptions. We cannot help but judge people based on their appearance, because that's the way our brains work and they're wired. And we are designed to judge people right away. And the only thing we have to judge people on instantaneously is the way they look, because we haven't even had a chance to hear them speak. We haven't even had a chance to get to know them so that we can find what we connect with them on a human level. And so the way you present yourself is really important. And you don't have to look like a GQ model by any means, but do make sure that whatever you're wearing is clean, that it is pressed so that there aren't wrinkles in it. Make sure that it, more than anything, that it makes you feel good. They've done a ton of studies with people, and just by putting somebody in a specific uniform, it actually makes them show up differently. And so think about that. Think about something that makes you feel more confident, because that will show up in your interview, and that will help you put off a better first impression. So your attire and first impressions really go hand in hand. Other things with first impressions, and this one's going to be funny right now, usually a nice strong handshake when you enter for an interview is really important and sets the tone nicely. A nice smile is helpful. So you want to look like you are happy to be there. I have been in lots of interviews where it seems like it's a pain in the ass for the person to be there, and that always rubs employers the wrong way when it seems like, they're doing you a favor by them showing up for the interview. So put on a smile, be happy to be there, be engaged, be grateful to be there for the interview. thank whoever is interviewing you afterwards. So thank them for their time. All nice things. So the way you look, the way you are engaging, so you want to be there, you're showing that you're interested, are really good for first impressions. Okay, behavioral questions. These are always the hard ones because they are personal, which means you have to actually be vulnerable enough to share about yourself. So these questions are based around, how do you behave in this scenario? Or, tell us your strengths that you bring. For me, I would say the best advice when it comes to behavioral questions is 1, be honest. 2, try to not give a canned answer, something that everybody says, because it's really apparent when you're in an interview if somebody says, wow, my biggest weakness is that I just care too much. I try too hard and I work too hard. Okay, yeah, I'm sure that's your biggest weakness. And that's what everybody wants to say, right? Because you just took a weakness and flipped it into something great. So stay away from those canned answers. It's really easy to figure them out. Now, if that is true though, if you think your biggest weakness is that you work too hard, you care too much, you're a workaholic, you can say that, but say it in a way that's truthful for you. So you can say, one of my biggest weaknesses is that I am a perfectionist. I sometimes will give too much energy to something, making it perfect, while sometimes the minimal viable product is honestly the best thing to put out there because it can get out there sooner. See how that feels more, less corny than, well, I just work too hard. I'm just too good. That's my biggest weakness. Other good thing with behavioral. So be truthful. Don't use canned responses. Give examples when it comes to behavioral questions. So, and let me back up. The reason for this is, if somebody were to ask me, tell us about a time, or tell us one of your strengths. And I'll say, one of my strengths is I'm a problem solver. Great. A problem solver might show up very different in me than how the person that's interviewing me is picturing how problem solving shows up for them. So if you can be illustrative in any of your behavioral questions and the answers to those behavioral questions, that's helpful. One of my greatest strengths is that I can problem solve really well. In fact, and this is very true, I love to problem solve. And the way I do that is by building coalitions and building teams to tackle challenges. And so what I do is I first do some background research, and I figure out how other people have maybe solved this problem successfully or creatively. And then I like to bring certain people to the table that I think bring a level of expertise that's needed. And I like to facilitate a fun, engaging brainstorming session where we get all these ideas on a table, and then we mine the best ones, and then we create action around ones that are plausible, but also big enough that they keep us motivated. So be truthful in your answers with behavioral questions. Don't be afraid to take some time and think about your answer. This is the biggest thing I see in interviews. You ask a question and the interviewee just wants to answer quick, but they don't really listen to your question, which unfortunately means they don't actually answer the question usually. And they also would have answered it more fully with more attention had they just paused. This is so hard to do because it's really awkward to have silence during an interview, but I promise you, it's going to be best for you and best for the person that's interviewing you. So when you're asked a question, it's okay to say, yeah, okay, good question. Just give me a second to think about that. Okay, so your question is, why would I be a good team member? So when I think back on my previous experiences, the things that I have always felt really proud of and that other team members and supervisors have appreciated and verbalized that they appreciated has been my ability to be a really strong team player, right? So now you've thought about it, you've reiterated the question so that they could stop you and say, oh, actually, nope, that's not the question. This is what we want you to answer. So you're making sure that you're answering your question. And it also gives you some time to fully think about your response. Also, it's always good to just breathe through interviews. They suck. They're super vulnerable. They're hard. You are being judged which nobody likes to be judged. That's the whole purpose of an interview, is they're judging you. So having some time to take that breath is really helpful for you. And it engages that beautiful brain of yours and allows you to come up with a really nice answer. Okay, how do you do phone and Skype interviews? This is going to be huge because I will venture to say we are going to do a lot more work remotely and virtually. And even if the work isn't being done virtually, a lot of the conversations will be. So what is important when it comes to Skype and phone, specifically for interviews? Skype, pay attention to your background, right? So I was intentional with my background here. I personally don't like a blank wall. I think your background in Skype interviews gives you a little bit of time to show who you are and give some of your personality away without having to share it. So look, I have a map of the world. I have a record player. I have a picture of Germany. And then you can't really see this, but then that is a picture from my wedding day. And so for me, I love music and I love to travel, and my husband's okay. No, I love my husband. And so that's just like a nice capture of things I love. So, but also you'll notice I don't have any posters of inappropriate images or language, and I also don't have anybody in my background. So in fact, before this video, I ran into my husband's office and said, hey, I'm doing a interview video, please don't come in and out. And then he started playing his bass guitar, and you could hear it out here, so I ran back in and said, hey, I can hear that, can you just like not play for 10 minutes? Right, so pay attention to who might come into your background, what noises they might be able to hear. Turn your cell phones off, just like you would in a face-to-face interview, because that noise not only is going to distract you, but pull you away, it's also going to distract the people who are conducting the interview. Now, phone is interesting because phone, you can't see the background, right? Phone is really all about listening to somebody's voice. So with phone interviews, pay attention to the fact that you might have to almost narrate a little bit about what you're doing. So oftentimes, we talked about taking a breath, pausing, thinking about your response before you give it. Same thing for phone interviews. But when you do that, you are going to have to say, yeah, I just need a minute to think about that. Because if you don't, they're going to think the line got cut off. And they'll be like, hello? Are you there? Are you there? And you'll be like, oh, yeah, I'm here. And then that's sometimes going to make you feel like you have to respond really, really quickly and not fully just take some time to digest that question. So you kind of narrate what you're doing in a phone interview. So yeah, that's a great question. I just need a second to think about that. Okay, so when you're asking me about, why I think I'm good for this job, when I think about it, this is what comes to mind, and this is what I'm excited about, blah, 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 and you can give your answer. So pay attention to that. Also pay attention to your background noises with the phone, because they are incredibly distracting, and it almost won't matter how brilliant your answers are. If there's a lot of communication, conversation in the background, again, it's going to distract you. It's going to distract the people listening to you. So before a Skype interview or a phone interview, just make sure you have set up time and space for you to concentrate on what's happening. No interruptions, be that a noise interruption or a human visual interruption. So that's dress attire, first impressions, behavioral questions and how to answer them, and then phone and Skype interviews. The other thing you asked was about what if somebody asks you for a video intro to your application, which again, we see some of that. I think we're going to see more of that as we continue to kind of swim in this new virtual tech-driven world. I would say the same things come with a video introduction. Pay attention to your background and think about what your background is communicating to the person that you're interviewing with. And also, what do you want them to see and what do you want them to know? You're still going to want to pay attention to your dress attire. Now, I will say with your dress, don't dress completely different than who you are, because you still want to land a job that you are going to like and that you feel like you can show up in and that they will like and that they will show up in. So for example, even today, I have my Better Off in Billings, my BOIB t-shirt on, which is today's Better Off in Billings days. But then for this interview, I threw on a blazer on top of it. So I just wanted to make sure that I stayed true to the day and the brand, but also that I was professional enough to have this conversation with you. So don't be afraid to show your personality in your dress. Just make sure that it is intriguing in a positive way and shows off good parts of your personality and still looks like you give a dang about the job. Clean and ready to go. I think those are the answers to your questions. I would say the answers to your questions and the advice go across the board. So anytime in an interview, communication is to be honest, to be okay that you're nervous. If your voice shakes, if you have weird gulps, trust me, almost everybody has that when they interview because it just is a really vulnerable space. So don't worry, don't let that freak you out too much. I never really love when somebody says, oh my gosh, I'm really nervous. But honestly, if you have to say that to calm yourself down, it's okay. Try not to apologize though for being nervous because it's just nerve-wracking. And you're nervous because you care. So just know that that is an enduring sign for somebody who's interviewing you. Well, make sure that your first impressions are strong. Smile, look engaged, seem like you want to be there, be interested, and definitely ask questions. I have been in so many interviews where the person getting interviewed just wants to get done with it, and not because their intentions aren't good, but because it's just uncomfortable that they just want to be done. They don't ask any questions. If you don't ask any questions, it kind of gives a sign that you're not that interested, or that you haven't really thought a lot about yourself in that position. So before you go in for your interview, think of a couple questions and make it that you make them ones you actually want to know the answer to. I would avoid how much does this pay and how much time do I get off? Those are red flags for people interviewing you. But I would ask questions such as, paint me what a day in the life in this role looks like. You know, what can I expect on an average normal work day here? Or tell me a little bit about the culture of your organization and what are you really proud of? And what should I look forward to if I were able to join the team? So ask questions that you're showing that you're really thinking about this role, but specifically that you're thinking about yourself in the role. So that's what I have for you today. Oh, you all know communications is so important, especially because it is our way to really sell ourselves and sell our talents and the fact that we would be a great addition to anybody's team. Of course, if you have further questions, you can always have access to me through your instructor. And I just hope right now that you are all remaining safe and healthy and sane amidst all of this, and that you are getting excited to conduct some of these interviews in the future. So good luck, and I hope to talk to you sometime soon.